Welcome to the second part of chapter 13. Before we discuss influence tactics, we're going to explore the idea of organizational political behavior a little bit more in depth. And so in the beginning of this chapter, I defined organizational political behavior as any type of behavior that is not in our job description, but we choose to engage in to advance our own self-interest. Now, of course, political behavior can be used to engage in promoting self-interest that are closely aligned with organizational interests. So political behavior is not always problematic. But when an organization becomes extremely political and employees feel that they have to use their power to influence outcomes in their favor, they are distracted from what they are actually supposed to do for their work and spend a lot of time and energy on engaging in political behaviors to ensure their well-being within the organization. For example, different types of political behavior include avoiding responsibility or shifting blame, not sharing negative information, taking credit for someone else's work, making sure that you build coalitions with other people so that they vote in a way that is favorable to you, resisting change overtly or covertly, speaking negatively about the manager or the organization or about a colleague. So there are different types of behaviors, some of them more obvious, some of them less obvious, some of them overt, some of them covert, that could fall under the umbrella of political behavior. Now, why would employees feel that they need to engage in political behavior, meaning trying to influence things and decisions in their own favor? Why would employees feel the need to dedicate energy and time to doing these types of things? Very often in organizational environments, when there is a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty regarding how decisions are made, employees will feel the need to become more political. For example, if there is one promotion and multiple people are interested in that promotion, but it's not very clear how the decision will be made. If there is no clear objective criteria that I need to meet in order to qualify for the promotion, I am much more likely to engage in different types of political behavior to make sure that I get it, to make sure that I advance my own self-interest. Maybe I perceive that it's important for my colleagues to like me, and so I might go around the department asking people if I can help them, asking people what they think about the best qualifications, making sure people know how qualified I am for the position, making sure the manager likes me, doing little favors for the manager. All of these types of behaviors are political in nature. The goal of those behaviors is not to actually do my job, but to advance my own self-interest of gaining the promotion. So if there is a lot of ambiguity, unclear guidelines or unclear criteria, employees will feel more pressure to behave politically. If the stakes are very high and resources are very scarce, employees will further feel the need to behave politically. For example, if I feel that cost cutting is coming and that some individuals in the organization might be laid off, I'm going to do everything in my power and try to generate as much influence as I can to make sure that I keep my job, because this is a very high stakes situation. So while every organization is going to have some political behavior and employees are likely to engage in political behavior, it's not always a problem. Political behavior will become a problem if employees dedicate too much time on ensuring their well-being or safety is it continues in the organization. And so as a manager, if I note that a lot of energy is spent on political behavior, I might want to explore my own decision-making process. And am I making decisions in a way that is transparent and objective? Because if it's clear that I'm playing favorites, employees will be incentivized, motivated to make sure that I like them. If I do not make decisions based on objective criteria, more and more employees might feel it is important to make sure that I like them so that my decisions go their way. So the next slide, we will discuss some of the more positive situations or implications of political behavior, but it's important to remember that political behavior can also have some negative facets, especially if employees feel that there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity around decisions that are very important to them, high stakes decisions. Now let's look at some of the things that employees can do to try to influence others. There are lots of different influence tactics, and we've looked at those before when we discussed decision making. And these are ordered from soft to hard. At the top of the slide are listed more soft influence approaches that can be very effective, both influencing up, influencing horizontally, and influencing down. At the bottom of the list are more hard influence tactics, which typically can only be used if you actually have power. So typically from top down influence strategies. So let's look at those for a minute. Rational persuasion, we've discussed this before. If I want to influence my boss or try to persuade key decision makers in the organization, I can try to use rational persuasion by providing evidence, data, statistical analysis, facts to try to sway their opinion. Rational persuasion is a very effective approach to gain commitment, buy-in. If I'm able to persuade people that this is the right course of action, they are more likely to buy in and be committed to following through with what I'm asking them to do, because I've been able to influence them, persuade them, convince them rationally by providing evidence, data, statistical analysis, and facts. Inspirational appeal is a concept that we already visited when we discussed transformational leaders. Transformational leaders are very often going to try to inspire their followers, try to get their followers excited about a future vision of the organization, where we could be if we engaged in certain actions. And much like rational persuasion, inspirational appeal is likely, when effective, to result in commitment, high level of buy-in. Consultation and collaboration are two different levels of participatory decision-making. Consultation is a situation in which I seek feedback from my team or my subordinates and then make the decision on my own based on that feedback. And collaboration is a situation in which I make the decision with my team in an egalitarian situation. Both consultation and collaboration, when used well, can also result in commitment. When people get to participate in the decision-making process, they are more likely to have a higher level of understanding and a much higher level of buy-in, and more likely to be committed to the courses of action that I'm trying to pursue. And so those top 4 influence strategies, when used effectively, can result in commitment, which, if you remember from our earlier discussion, is our goal as leaders or as influencers. We want people to buy in so that they will continue engaging in the behaviors, whether we are there to watch them and supervise them or not, whether we are offering an extrinsic reward or not. Ingratiation is also referred to as flattery or brown-nosing. Ingratiation refers to a situation in which I say something positive in order to try to convince you to do something for me. And so ingratiation, most cases, will result in compliance. I will do what I ask, but if not perceived as sincere, ingratiation can actually backfire and result in resistance. If I feel that you're only saying nice things to me because you want to ask me for a favor, I might actually resist. Exchange tactics are a situation in which I offer to help you with one project in exchange for your help with another project. These exchange tactics could result in compliance. I will do what you're asking me to do if the exchange seems fair to me. Of course, I could also resist if I'm not interested in the exchange that you are proposing. Personal appeal refers to my making a request to you or asking for a favor based on our friendship or loyalty. Again, much like ingratiation and exchange, this can result in compliance. At times, also resistance if I don't really feel loyal to you. Apprising is an approach in which I'm trying to convince you how my course of action or my demand or my request is actually good for you as well. If I believe you, I will comply. If I don't believe you, I will resist. At the bottom of the list, we have hard influence tactics. In those influence tactics, individuals are trying to use power to coerce others to comply with their wishes. Coalition building refers to a situation in which individuals band together to try to have power in numbers, so to speak. For example, joining a labor union is an excellent example of coalition building, where employees come together to try to influence management. Legitimating is a situation in which I call to the legitimate authority that I have, right? Why? Because I said so. This is likely to result in compliance if employees are indeed concerned with consequences, but could also result in resistance when people are not really afraid of the consequences that I might be able to impose on them. And very similarly, pressure refers to making demands through threats or warning, again using one's position power or legitimate power to try to influence others. And so these are different influence tactics that people might choose to use when engaging in political behavior, but also otherwise. Not necessarily in political behavior, but also in just regular influence approaches within organizations. As I mentioned earlier, your textbook tends to take a more positive outlook on political behavior and political skills, and suggests that people who are strong personal, interpersonal, and political skills are able to generate higher levels of interpersonal influence. So those individuals who have strong social astuteness, who are able to read a situation, understand who the powerful players are, and affiliate themselves with those powerful players, who are able to network with people who are well regarded or well respected in the organization, might have a higher ability to exercise their influence on other people. So your textbook defines political skills as the ability to effectively understand others at work and use such knowledge to influence others to act in ways that enhance one's personal and organizational goals. And so, of course, political behavior can be closely aligned with organizational goals when you're trying to use your political skill to advance your personal goals that are aligned with organizational goals. In that case, political behavior is not going to harm the organization. It might actually be beneficial. But we have to recognize that people might also engage in political behavior to advance their own self-interest. Another way that your textbook discusses as a way to enhance the ability to influence others is impression management, right? And we all engage in impression management or perception management. We want to make sure that people perceive us as competent, intelligent, responsible, reliable. And this is also a way to try to boost your ability to influence others by making sure that people perceive you in a positive light. If it is because of how you communicate or how you behave or how you dress or you affiliate yourself with. One last important concept in the discussion of power in organization is, of course, power sharing. And many organizations try to practice delegation. Delegation is the highest level of power sharing. But we cannot jump from domination, authoritarian leadership to delegation. We have to follow a more progressive or gradual process to get there. For example, if we have an authoritarian decision maker who hoards decision-making power, it's going to be very difficult to get employees to a point where they can make their own decisions and where decision-making power can be delegated to them. And so decision-making and this decision-making power sharing is a gradual process where the leader or decision maker might first engage in consultation, where the followers or team members are able to influence the decision making, to participation when decision making is made together, to delegation when decision making power is completely delegated to the subordinates and they are able to make decisions on their own without consulting with the manager. Of course, there are a lot of benefits to practicing delegation. Delegation can flatten the organizational hierarchy. If we don't need middle managers and supervisors to make decisions anymore because we have absorbed those responsibilities into the employees' jobs. If employees can make decisions on their own, they can possibly solve problems faster, provide higher quality customer service, and reduce the cost and the time that it takes to make decisions in organizations. Of course, if you want to delegate, you have to make sure that your employees are trained and that they know how to make the decisions. This is why when we discuss decision making, it was suggested that programmed decisions that have a very clear decision-making protocol are much easier to delegate, because if you can give someone a handbook and tell them, okay, I want you to make this decision and here are the steps that you need to take in order to make this decision, you are more easily able to delegate those types of decisions. For example, across the university campus, hiring a new faculty member follows a very, very similar protocol. There is a handbook delivered from Human Resources that any search committee needs to be formed in a certain way, and all candidates need to be evaluated in a specific way, and the process have to follow a very specific protocol. And so it's relatively easy to delegate those decisions to individual organizational members because they know exactly how to make the decision. Many organizations follow delegation. For example, Four Seasons, a very well-known and high-end hotel company, practices delegation for service recovery. Service recovery is a situation in which when there is service failure, when the service was not as it should have been, the employee can engage in service recovery. Four Seasons empowers their employees to make these decisions without having to run to the supervisor for approval. Let's say somebody in a restaurant didn't receive their food as they ordered it. Maybe the meat was undercooked or overcooked. Now we have to send the food back and make it again, and the customer has to wait. This is an example of service failure. At Four Seasons, food servers are empowered to make decisions without having to ask their manager for permission and try to make it up for the guest. For example, comping the dish, giving the dish away for free, or giving away a free beverage or a free dessert. And this is a way in which the employee, him or herself, can engage in immediate service recovery, which enhances the experience of the customer, but also makes work more meaningful for the employee. We talked about stress a lot earlier this semester, and lack of control is a very known stressor. If employees feel that they have a higher sense of control over the outcomes of their job, they are able to better manage stress. And so empowering employees to make decisions has lots of benefits, not just in terms of efficiency and cost cutting and a flatter organizational hierarchy, but also because it can make the employee's job more meaningful and give them a higher sense of control. As I mentioned earlier, we cannot get to delegation overnight. Employees have to be trained and given guidelines as to how to make decisions that benefit the organization as a whole. Very often in organizations, managers are reluctant to share power because they feel that if they share their power, they have less of it. They are also sometimes reluctant to delegate because ultimately the manager is responsible for the performance of the department, and it is a way to open yourself up and make yourself more vulnerable if other people's decisions will reflect on your own performance. And so while it is important to train employees as to how to make the right decisions, it's also important to incentivize managers and reward managers for doing that, because empowerment is very time-consuming. Training employees is very time-consuming. And if the manager is not rewarded for grooming, for training, for developing his or her subordinates, the manager has no incentive to do so. Behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated. If you want your managers to share power, to delegate, to groom a successor, to develop their subordinates, to coach them, you have to reward the managers for doing so. And so organizational delegation is a process that has to be well thought out and well supported, both at the managerial level and at the employee level. This concludes our discussion of Chapter 13. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.